Hello, everyone. Welcome to Celsius 233, your go-to place for fiction book summaries. Today, we will get lost in the pages of People of the Dark by Robert E. Howard. People of the Dark is a short story by Robert E. Howard, first published in 1932. Known for creating Conan the Barbarian, Howard was a master of pulp fiction, blending elements of fantasy, horror, and adventure. This tale delves into themes of reincarnation, love, violence, and ancient, hidden terrors. Set in the foreboding Dagon's cave, it explores a complex narrative of vengeance and past lives. Plot summary. Beneath the shadow of towering trees, a man arrived at the entrance of Dagon's cave with murder in his heart. His mind was consumed by the desire to kill Richard Brent, his rival for the love of a leaner Bland. The darkness of the cave mirrored the gloom in his soul, and the revolver in his pocket weighed heavy as the only solution to his torment. For days, he had been tortured by the thought that a leaner might choose Richard, and this jealousy had driven him to the cave, where he intended to end the conflict forever. The cave had always been shrouded in legend. The villagers spoke of ancient people who once lived there, dwarfish, almost inhuman creatures who had vanished long ago. These tales barely registered in the man's mind as he moved deeper into the cavern, though the air felt thick with something unspoken. As he descended further, a strange sense of familiarity crept over him, as if the cave knew him in some ancient, forgotten way. Lost in thought, he stumbled down a hidden staircase, his fall rendering him unconscious. When he awoke, he was no longer himself. The world around him had shifted, and so had his identity. He was no longer John O'Brien, but Conan, a warrior from a time long past. The walls of the cave were not unfamiliar, they were the remnants of a life he had once lived. His hand gripped an iron sword, and the weight of his past crashed down on him. The memories were as clear as the bloodstains on his weapon. Conan had once raided these lands, leading his black-haired Gaels against the Britons, slaughtering his enemies in search of a woman named Tamara. Tamara had golden hair and gray eyes, much like the woman he had desired in another life. She had fled from him into the dark forest, desperate to escape, and Conan had followed her with brutal intent. But when she reached the mouth of Dagon's cave, her lover Vertorix, a Briton warrior, had confronted Conan. Their clash was fierce, the ringing of swords and axes filling the night air. Vertorix fought with all his might to protect Tamara, but Conan's strength was unmatched. He drove the Briton into the cave, his eyes burning with a single-minded obsession. The cave, however, held dangers far greater than the clash of men. Deeper within its recesses, the children of the night waited. These were the descendants of the ancient inhabitants, a race more reptilian than human, who had retreated into the earth long ago. Their twisted forms, scaly and grotesque, now lurked in the shadows, worshipping dark gods and guarding secrets older than time. As Conan pursued his prey deeper into the cave, he found Vertorix and Tamara bound upon an altar, awaiting a gruesome sacrifice. Conan did not hesitate. He attacked the monstrous creatures with all the fury of his warrior's heart, cutting through their ranks with his sword. Vertorix, despite being Conan's enemy, fought beside him, for survival now united them. They battled side by side, retreating through the cavern as more of the inhuman horde swarmed upon them. The two men fought their way to a narrow stairway that led upward toward the light, and with Tamara close behind, they climbed toward what they hoped was escape. At the top of the stairway, however, they found only despair. The path led to a high ledge overlooking a roaring river, far below the towering cliffs. There was no escape, only the abyss. Vertorix and Tamara exchanged a look, one that spoke of acceptance and love. They had no words left, for their fate was already sealed. Hand in hand, they leapt from the ledge, choosing the river's cold embrace over the horror that awaited them if they stayed. The children of the night howled in fury at their loss, but Conan was left standing alone. The ancient forces of the cave, the violence of past lives, and the overwhelming desire that had driven him here, all of it faded into the background. As the river swallowed the lovers, Conan's identity began to blur once more, and the present reclaimed him. When John O'Brien came to his senses, he was no longer Conan the Reaver, but the man who had come to kill Richard Brent. The vision of his past life had lifted, but it left behind a strange understanding, an awareness that this conflict had played out before, over many lifetimes. The same roles, the same passions, the same fates. His hand still twitched toward the revolver in his pocket, but something had changed. The hatred that had once consumed him now felt distant, overshadowed by the weight of time and destiny. Richard Brent and Alina Bland arrived soon after. Unaware of John's presence, they spoke quietly, their voices carrying across the quiet cave. The tension between them dissolved as they confessed their love for each other. Alina, like Tamara before her, had finally made her choice. The cycle had come full circle once again, but this time John knew that he could not act. Their love, like the doomed passion of Tamara and Vertorix, was something he could not destroy. Yet even as John turned to leave the cave, a final horror stirred. From the darkness emerged a creature, the last of the children of the night, its deformed body slithering toward the couple. Richard stepped forward, determined to protect Alina, though he was unarmed. The beast, its reptilian eyes glinting with malice, advanced. John, watching from the shadows, knew what he must do. He drew his revolver and fired, the single shot echoing through the cave. The creature let out a terrible scream and fell into the abyss, lost to the river below. Richard and Alina were safe, but John knew his part in the story had ended. The cycle of love, sacrifice, and violence had played out once more, and this time, the roles had shifted. John left the cave, leaving behind the ancient echoes of his past and the ghosts of Conan, Tamara, and Vertorix. That's all for now, but if you're loving Conan the Barbarian series, there's more waiting for you. Find the other books by Robert E. Howard in the description or on Celsius 233. Remember, while our summaries capture the essence, they can never replace the full experience of reading the book. If this summary intrigued you, consider diving into the complete story, buy the book, and immerse yourself in Robert E. Howard's original work. Bye-bye, take care, have fun.